What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Hoffman Show on a Friday here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live, of course, on YouTube too at the Team 980. A show that will ask you, what do you think of the Commanders taking Josh Conerly, and then take your calls on it at 301-230-0980 very shortly. However, I will at first tell you what I think of the Commanders drafting Josh Conerly, the offensive tackle out of Oregon, who is a mammoth human being, 6'5", 315. He's got great length, 34 and a quarter inch arms. 34 is kind of the standard for tackles. Like, hey, if you got 34 plus inch arms, we're all good here. Will Campbell, by the way, 33. That is why there was so much consternation. Incredible feat. Guy played running back in high school as a freshman, caught a touchdown pass as a tackle-eligible play in his first year on campus at Oregon. So this is a special athlete the Commanders took last night. That's not to say he's perfect. There's a reason he went 29 and not 9, where Kelvin Banks Jr. did to the New Orleans Saints. But this is a guy that plenty of people whose opinions are more than respectable on the offensive line had as their top lineman in this class. Mike Tice of the former Minnesota Vikings head coaching fame, who was a long time offensive line coach in the league before that. He had Conerly as his top lineman in this draft. And so I think we can talk about the selection, the decision, compared to what else was on the board. But when you talk about the player, I totally get why they took him. That's who he is, a guy that adds to what is a supremely athletic offensive line. Tunsil is very, very special, obviously, at left tackle. We'll see probably Brandon Coleman would be my guess playing left guard after all the tackle talk. That didn't even get to the offseason program. He'll probably kick inside and wind up playing guard, although he and Conerly will probably both get their shot at right tackle with the other one playing guard. So two pretty special athletes there. Two guys with basketball backgrounds who move really well, very fluid. And then we know what Sam Cosmi is, assuming that he comes back from that ACL clean and is the athlete that he has always been. And Tyler Biadasz at center is very solid as well. And I'm just again impressed at the conviction that Adam Peters has, and I'm impressed by some of the things they think about, some of the things they look at that seem so obvious in hindsight. It's like, of course, that's the thing that you would want to know. Of course, that's a thing that you would want to study. And that includes how he plays against top competition, or a prospect plays against top competition. And I found this bite from Adam Peters particularly intriguing last night. This is from the post-draft press conference. Adam Peters talking about some very specific tape that they watched and then had their R&D, research and development team, pull statistically in terms of the evaluation they do on everyone in an area where Conerly shined.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something I failed to mention when I started the presser, but I think one, the way he competed against Abdul Carter. He went toe-to-toe with Abdul Carter, who's the best pass rusher in the draft. He did really well, and he did really well against a lot of really good players. He, played at Ohio State twice, and they were getting the break speed off in the second game, and he was still competing to the very last second, and that showed a lot. And just those types of things you see in him. When we have metrics where our R&D department does a great job of giving us metrics. How do they perform against high draftable players? And so he performed really high against high draftable players, and that lined up with what our eyes saw. And so those things make you really not just his skill, but the fact that he will go toe-to-toe with those guys. He's not going to freak out. He's not going to panic. He's not going to do things that he doesn't normally do when he's face to face with a really great player.
And that's what you want. You want a guy that's going to play under control. You want a guy that, in this division especially, is up for those challenges. I mean, not only did he go toe-to-toe with Abdul Carter from a protection standpoint, they were helmet-to-helmet, nose-to-nose at one point after a couple of reps where they're getting after it pretty good. And so he's soft-spoken. He's kind. He's all these things. Gregarious young man, but he's also a dude that he's an offensive lineman. And I mean, that is a ultimate compliment when you turn on the tape and you look at kind of the way he competes, the finish he has. I mean, He'll drive you through the ground. He'll pancake you. So there's just a lot to like there. And in terms of being able to stay within himself against top competition, one, he's going to see Carter twice a year. And if he's not, he's going to be matched up against Brian Burns, likely, and Kayvon Thibodeau in New York. The New York Giants just picked up Thibodeau's fifth-year option yesterday. Micah's in Dallas, obviously. And then you've got the slew of dudes in Philly, which also now includes Jahad Campbell, who somehow fell to them at the bottom of the first round. And I think this is why ultimately, like, we can talk about, and I'm sure we will, some of you guys are going to call in and have gripes and gripe away at 301-230-0980. But I'm perfectly fine with them passing up some of the guys they did to say, what happens to our offense that was top 5 in the league last year by the end of the year when we don't have to game plan around the offensive line talent that we have? Because last year, the talent wasn't horrible like a lot of people thought it was going to be in the beginning of the year, but it was very average. Now you've upgraded significantly at left tackle. You're hoping you're upgrading, and you're certainly upgrading. Well, I'll say certainly athletically. Andrew Wiley's actually a pretty good athlete. But you're upgrading if Conerly's your right tackle. You still are upgrading athletically. That's how good of an athlete Conerly is. Like, Wiley's good. Conerly's special. Wiley has the veteran know-how, but hopefully Conerly, by middle of the year would be the better player with some of the development that he can do. And by the way, Wiley is probably going to compete with Allegretti for the right guard spot until Sam Cosmi's back, because he's played guard at a decent level before. So you're upgrading your guard spots. Your center is going to be the one thing that's the same. And putting that in front of Jaden Daniels, also putting that in front of your run game to supplement what Jaden Daniels can do, adding Deebo Samuel, like, you made a strength stronger. And that's going to help your defense because you can stay on the field and sustain drives in a way that was very similar to when you found success last year. It's easier to do when you've got the O-line to do it. And now, instead of having to game plan and scheme the offensive line to work, you just throw those guys out there and be like, hey, bros, block. And by the way, that also frees up some of your eligibles if you can get some of these chips and all that kind of stuff you had to do. Just get those guys out in routes. Now what happens to your offense? So it's an exciting pick. It's grown on me a lot since last night. I think I was surprised at first, and that probably influenced how I initially reacted to it. I just thought tackle wouldn't be on the board for them. I believed them too much when they said Brandon Coleman right tackle. But Josh Conerly, going to probably be the guy who gets the best shot there. Coleman will fit in where he gets in. And the other thing about those two guys, to wrap up here before we get to your calls and more from Adam Peters, is the way both of those dudes are built, the character on both of them, however it shakes out, they're just like, I'm here for the team. Those two, I wouldn't surprise me if Coleman and Conerly become really good friends. They share similar backgrounds in terms of the played other sports, played a bunch of basketball, like really good athletes. I'm very excited to see that room coalesce, and those two dudes should be in front of Jaden Daniels for a long, long time. When we get back, we'll take your calls. What do you make of the Josh Conerly pick? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980, plus more from Adam Peters next on The Hoffman Show. It's off this show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. You can call us at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. What you think of the Commanders taking Josh Conerly, the offensive tackle, out of Oregon with their first pick at 29 overall? Apparently had a couple of offers to trade down. They didn't like any of them more than they liked Conerly. Adam Peters told the Command Center show last night before he stepped into the press conference room that he thought the Bears might take Conerly at 10. He was sweating as soon as Kelvin Banks Jr. went off the board at 9 to the Saints. Ultimately, their guy still there at 29. Let's go to Jack and Frederick to get us started on the phone. Jack, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hi, Craig. How you doing?
I'm good, man.
Hey, so I've done a few mock drafts over the past couple of weeks, and my last one, the night before the draft, I had traded down to 40 and got Josh Conerly as my first pick. And it looks like that wasn't going to be the case if we had traded down last night, that somebody else would have taken him. So I'm thrilled with the pick. I think it does solidify the offensive line even more. And we have a lot of options now for strength all across the line. And when I watched this film, it looks like he does some of the things that we like to do on offense really well, like getting out on screen passes and some of the guard tackle pull runs. And I know we're aiming for a running back later in the draft, but I think having another offensive lineman, it's just going to make it that much easier for whoever we have at running back to get more wide open holes to run through. So I'm excited for both the passing game and the running game.
Yeah, Jack, and I think you're 100% right that if you could have done what you did in your mock draft and traded down to 40, they would have loved to do it. But I think there was not a great chance that Josh Conerly was going to be available. Thanks for the call, dude. And I think Jack's also 100% right in terms of what the options are for this offense and what they like to do. If you want a guy who can get out in the screen game in front of, I don't know, Deebo Samuel, Josh Conerly is a really good choice. He runs so well. Now, he does occasionally have some trouble hitting little guys in space, but that's because that's really hard. And so that's a skill that I'm sure Bobby Johnson and some of the veteran teammates that he has can help him with. A guy like Laramie Tunsil can be like, hey, this is how I target. Let's work on this so they can get better at that skill. But you can't teach the guy to be fast and explosive in the first place. And I think that to me is the biggest thing, is the stuff that I would mark down or that you read about, that you see on tape, that's his weakness, is stuff I feel like you can work on, especially when you're him. He is a third-year true junior. Okay, this is not a kid with a COVID year. There's not whatever. Like, there's some of these guys. Who were we looking at? We were looking at David Walker this morning. And by the way, at 5 o'clock, you'll hear Logan and I talk about some of the guys that we think are going to be in the mix for day 2. So you'll hear that coming up as today's edition of Not My Beat. If you want Logan's full breakdown of Conerly and how he fits in and all that kind of stuff, check out Take Command at some point this weekend. But we were talking about like David Walker from Central Arkansas, edge rusher. He's like 25 years old, and he was playing at Central Arkansas. I'd hope if you're remotely close to an NFL prospect, you're crushing people at 25 in the FCS. But for a guy like Conerly, he's out there in one of the best 2 conferences in college football as a young player, and he's more than holding his own. He's really, really good. And because he's a thinner, leaner body type at 6'5", 315 compared to these dudes that are 330, 340, and he carries it so well, he can actually get stronger, I think. And I think a couple of years, I think what he walks into in camp this year, and to spring camp specifically, is going to look different than what he looks like when he walks into training camp, and is going to look different than what it looks like when he walks into the spring next year. This dude's body is going to transform as he finishes growing, as a 21-year-old going on 22 in November. And he gets with a professional strength program, and his job is now to work out and eat in the ways that he is told to, as opposed to balancing that with whatever class load a Division I athlete takes at this point in the NIL era. Not that class was ever the most important thing for some student athletes. Although Josh Conerly does feel like, to me, a guy that went to class. That's whatever that's worth. Probably nothing. Let's go to Aveen. Aveen's in D.C. Thanks, Aveen, for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show. What do you think of the Commanders taking Josh Conerly?
Hey, Craig. I think it's an exciting pick. Conerly got on my radar a couple of days ago with McShay's final mock draft, and I think he generally has good intel, and he was saying that from what he had heard, Washington was in on four people, four names in play for 29, and he said Conerly, Eman Wari, and then 2 running backs, Henderson and Hampton. So I just became way more cognizant of Conerly as a possibility. And I think it's really interesting because we were a top 5-ish type of offense last season, and how many offenses, the following off season make 2 changes or 2 significant investments at tackle, like 2 changes to the tackle position. That's like something you don't really see. So I'm wondering what that means. How much improved is our running game going to be? How much improved can our screen game be? How much more creative can Cliff be? And if Jaden's going to be able to drop back more. So I think it's exciting, and I think we're building something that maybe just rivals Detroit in the NFC in terms of offense. Maybe Tampa too is up there. But what I'm interested in hearing from you is about the idea of of need versus best player available, because once we got to pick 29 last night, I had a bunch of people texting, "Oh, we have all these like big names available that are falling." And I was thinking to myself, just knowing from last year's draft and Adam Peters, I was like, I bet it's like a name we're not even thinking of, and it's like a position we haven't really thought of that much either. So I'm just thinking about that because a lot of people are saying, edge rusher and corner. And I genuinely believe when they say they're, satisfied or, happy with the roster they have right now and they think they could play tomorrow. Although corner does scare me a little bit because Lattimore has injury history.
Aveen, I'm going to have to cut you off because we're up against the clock, but it's a great call, and I'm going to answer your question. But I appreciate it, buddy, and thanks for the call. So to get straight to the question at the end there, and I think he brought up a bunch of really great points along the way, I think that they go best player available, especially early on, without fail, with the exception of if there's a quarterback, and that's going to be in a different bucket. So they see the draft the way the draft should be. This is a long-term building block. Think of how many one-year deals. And Peters talked about this pre-draft, right? There's plenty of guys that they've signed over the last couple of years that they would have liked to sign to multi-year deals, but the guys don't necessarily want to because they know if they ball out, then they can go get paid at a higher rate from the Commanders or somewhere else. Like, I bet you they wanted to sign last year Jeremy Chin to a multi-year deal. And Chin was like, I'm good. And he played really well, and then he went and got paid somewhere else. And the Commanders just kind of had to be like, all right, well, you're worth more to them than you are to us. That be the market. It is what it is. But the draft is where you get multi-year cost-controlled assets. And Laramie Tunsil is, 30-something years old. Do I think he can play 3 to 4 more years at a high level? Yeah, probably. Tackles play a long time in the league. But what happens if Laramie Tunsil in 2 years is starting to decline? You can move on from him, and you could kick Josh Conerly back over to left tackle and be like, all right, here we go. Josh Conerly is now the guy protecting Jaden Daniels' blind side. On the offensive line, like Wiley, Allegretti, those contracts are expiring, and I think you're looking for upgrades. At every other position, the same thing is true, right? Like, you've got guys that if you start tomorrow, you're not dead in the water, but there's no need to take an inferior player at any position because the whole point is to get the best football players possible over the long run, and the draft is where you do that compared to free agency where you're plugging holes and just kind of getting by for the year. And so I think where people are going to lie to themselves is they're going to be like, well, this wasn't the best player available or this guy's not. I'm telling you right now, listen to them talk about him and listen to what Peter said when he said to Command Center, I was sweating starting at 10. They had a top 15 grade on this dude. They had a bona fide, genuine first-round grade. Like Dane Brugler had a first-second on him. He's 23rd player on Dane's top 100. I think that they were significantly higher on him. And clearly, guys like Mike Green, Will Johnson were not on their boards. Will Johnson does not get to the second round if that foot injury and the other injury concerns, the medicals, aren't bad. Like, real bad. Mike Green, I heard he didn't interview well around the multiple accusations. That he got real defensive with teams. Teams did not feel comfortable with it. And you're not gonna invite that into your building if, one, you don't feel like you can trust the guy, and two, you think it's a risk. Like you don't like the way he talks about this stuff, and you think that it could happen again. You don't want your logo flashed up on the screen with our player, our team accused of sexual violence. And like Mike Green's been accused twice in two different places. And so I know some people will be like, oh, Donovan Ezeraku. Like, they didn't have as high of a grade on Donovan Ezeraku. And a lot of other teams were the same. A lot of teams had Ezeraku as an early second type of guy. They had Josh Conerly, top half of the first round. I bet a week's, I'd probably be willing to bet a year salary on it. That's probably not a very smart thing to do. But I would bet you that at least a week's salary that they had a top 15 grade on Josh Conerly. And Adam Peters was terrified that someone else did too. And luckily for them, enough other good players were available in this draft, and enough other teams didn't need tackles. And teams that did, like Houston, traded out because Atlanta pulled in Atlanta again. And that allowed them to do what they did. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. And we will take more of your calls on the Hoffman Show next. Commanders take Josh Conerly, 29th overall in the 2025 NFL Draft. Let you hear from Adam Peters more throughout the show. Who could they take at 61? And how could a trade look and all that kind of stuff? Who's kind of in the range, in the bucket? We'll get to all of that with Logan Paulson at the top of the hour. Plus, some of the other big stories from around the NFL and around the draft last night. Before the end of the show today at 6 o'clock, which, by the way, programming note, we're done at 6:15 today because we have Nationals baseball here on the Team 980. So Charlie and Dave get you going with Nats on deck at 6:15. But Logan and I will let you hear who we think is kind of in the mix coming up at 5 o'clock. And then Clinton Yates is going to join at 5:30 for his Friday visit to talk about Shedeur Sanders' fall out of the first round. But we continue now with your calls. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Ross in Tampa. Ross, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show. What's up, dude?
Man, long time no talk, Craig. What's good in the hood?
Hey, I've been here the whole time. I don't know where you've been.
Man, I've been doing postal inspections, man. Them guys up in D.C., they ain't playing around. They don't want us making calls to 980 no more. But this isn't just any call. This is a redemption call for me. Because a year ago today, I got the rambling and the talking. You had to cut me off and hang up on me, and I was embarrassed. So I'm gonna be a little bit more smooth this time.
Okay.
Man, I heard it all day long, man. I just feel like the same people who may have a problem with this pick are the same people who are going to complain about Jaden not being upright if we didn't get him. It's like, you got to look at it, Craig. We watch football, man. These linemen go down all the time on freak accidents, the same way we lost Cosme. You know, Christian Darishaw's injury. You're holding your own, and then your neighbor gets barreled into your kneecap, and then where's the death? No disrespect to the Tyler Dieters of the world and the Chris Pauls, but I think this is a real solid pick because we're investing in our future superstar quarterback. We gotta make these optimal moves. 61, I really don't know what direction we can go because I feel like we can go any direction outside of maybe, well, obviously quarterback, maybe tight end, and it makes sense. But the Adam Peters let him cook narrative, it's alive and strong. But, you know, I just like how I told Anthony this. I like how he keeps his coordinators in mind. Because let's face it, Cliff ain't going to be around for much long. So, like, you can get him as lineman too? Come on, Craig.
Hey, yeah, if I'm Cliff, like, I'm good, bro. I'm not going anywhere unless I have to. I'm sure he's well compensated. And, you know, I think what a great story. And I love that the Commanders' social team was able to get a photo and video of the actual note, if folks haven't seen this, that Cliff left in Adam's office. He went to go visit him during the week. Adam had stepped out, and he left him a note that said, "Stopped by. Please take the tackle out of Oregon. Thanks, Cliff." And he got his guy. Ross,
that's what Bruce Allen would have done in that situation. Probably blew his nose with it.
Yeah, spilled a beer on it. That was probably a little bit too much, but we'll just keep it moving.
Craig, I got a question for you. I was going to DM you, but I figured I was going to call and ask you. Not that I want this guy, but I just kind of want your take. First of all, who do you think we should get in the second round if you haven't disclosed it? And Isaiah Bond, does he get drafted this weekend?
That's a good question. All right, Ross, I'm going to let you hang up and listen. Appreciate the call as always. There's a bunch of dudes that I think are plausible at 61. I think if Femi Oladejo is there, that's kind of the guy that I would most like to see fall. I'm also thinking that he could come off the board sooner rather than later tonight. You just don't get a guy that's that kind of athlete and twitch. It's kind of like what I said about Shamar Stewart yesterday. You just don't get a dude whose muscles have muscles, who's got real pass rush juice, that has the size, the speed, all the stuff that he does, and then he's just available for you later. And especially in Oladejo, a guy that plays really hard, and I think the character's good too. So I would love to see Femi Oladejo somehow fall to 61. I just don't really see the path for him to fall to 61. Isaiah Bond's interesting for a multitude of reasons. One, there's this crazy off-the-field thing with him where he's got someone accusing him of a terrible thing, but he's got counter evidence. And, like, I'm not going to comment on who's did what. It's messy. And if I was a team, I wouldn't want to touch it. I'm just like, I don't want when my team says they drafted this guy for the ensuing discussion to be, and by the way, mess. That's not what I'm after. That's just my GM philosophy. Will that cost me talented people at times? Yes. But I also have never had a chance to sit down with Isaiah Bond. I don't know the kid. I've never talked to him. I don't know what his coaches say. I do know as a player, he's very intriguing. And I was talking to some folks over the last couple of weeks and, to ask about Golden. And, one team had some DBs in and they were like, Golden was fine, but like Bond's the guy that scared us. That Texas offense was very Isaiah Bond focused. I also think you could say their offense got better when it became more Matthew Golden focused. So there's just a lot there with Bond. I think there's a good, like he's electric enough on tape that it would not surprise me if he's a 3rd round pick. I'd be kind of surprised if he's a 2nd, but he is definitely a name to watch over the next couple of years to see if he can get his stuff straightened out and then ultimately unlock his potential. But Femi Oladejo is the other guy that I think I would look at. Let's go to our guy, Ford. Ford, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show. What's up, dude?
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. What you got on Josh Conerly?
Well, just a few things, and then, as always, I'll hang up and listen. But, yeah, I love the pick. Probably been said a lot of times before, but you got to protect your most valuable asset. And Craig, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see this type of behavior from Adam Peters and his staff year over year. I mean, just keep building through the trenches, kind of like Philadelphia just keeps building and adding people in the trenches. And it's just a smart way to do it, I think, when you have somebody like Jaden. And also, it was interesting. I don't know if you picked up on it, but on Tuesday in Adam's pre-draft presser, he kind of gave us a throwaway line. He gave us a little nugget that not many people, I was surprised none of the reporters circled back on it, but I think Nikki asked him a question that about edge. He goes, yeah, edge, and I'm sure he'll be asking me about offensive line and corner. And that was all he said. And nobody came back, but I picked up on it. I was like, offensive line and corner, this is a pre-draft presser. So I kind of had a feeling Tuesday that he was kind of, they were considering, along with their commander tag, et cetera, they were considering that position, a position of need as well, although, us out here in the public didn't really see it as such. And the last thing I'll just say, Craig, is you mentioned earlier, I'm continuing to be impressed with Adam and his staff and their intentionality. They stayed the course. They've bonded with everybody very quickly. Everybody buys in, is on the same page, and I trust him implicitly. So no matter who they pick tonight and over the weekend and what happens after the draft, I'm good because they've given me no reason other than to trust them implicitly. So I'd love to hear your view. Thanks, buddy.
Ford, I would just simply say amen to pretty much everything you said. I appreciate that call. And I'll double click on one thing Ford said just to kind of veer it in a different direction because I genuinely agree with everything he just said and I don't feel the need to repeat it. But if you look at the best available, the quote unquote best available, right? And it's funny because these insiders have to make their lists and then all of a sudden maybe they learn something during the draft or they learn something on, this morning and it's like, oh, that's why that guy's still available. Well, I would readjust my list. But if you look at the guys who were widely considered the best available still going into day 2, I don't know how many of these guys had the commander tag. And I'm not going to go a full on, like, I tried to tell you, but like, there's a reason I kept bringing it up. And it's not because then I get to stand on a soapbox in a moral high ground and be like, I told you these are fine young. I don't know any of these guys. I don't know them from Adam. I do know Adam Peters. I mean, I don't know Adam Peters, but I know you get the point. I don't personally know Adam Peters. We're not friends. But I know Adam Peters and Dan Quinn care about the character. And they care about the competitor. And they care about this stuff at a very, very high level. And so when people would be like, I don't know, James Pierce Jr., I'm like, no, they're not taking that guy. I had a hard time believing that Mike Green was their guy. The more frankly, even yesterday, and I feel bad because I talked about Will Johnson and then was doing more homework. And I was like, I wish I hadn't said all that stuff I said about Will Johnson. Like, the more I dug into Will Johnson, the more I had questions. Not just because of the injuries, but I was like, man, your 2024 tape looks like you were making business decisions. Like, you just weren't in it in the same way that you were in 2023. Nick Manwari, like, I'm very intrigued by Nick Manwari. I think he's apparently his teammates love him. super cerebral, but he doesn't deliver the thump in the way that a Jeremy Chin did, in the way that a Will Harris does. Like, there's certain things they look for where I can, if you give me a name, flip on the tape and know if I have access to, someone's legitimate all-22 and just be like, within 10 plays, I can tell you if that guy's a Commander from the tape. And then I want to go no, like a guy like Mike Green, I would tell you yes, based off the tape. And then you go off the field and you're like, oh no, that's in his report. I'm good on that. And the other best available guys, I don't know that any of them outside of maybe Ezeraku would have gotten the Commander's tag. And I don't know that Ezeraku would have gotten it. And I do think he's a tier down for them in terms of the eval anyway. So it kind of becomes irrelevant. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. We'll wrap up the hour with more of your calls on Josh Conerly next. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Let's keep it rolling with the calls on the 2025 NFL Draft at 301-230-0980 with Noel. Noel, what's up, dude? Thanks for calling. What you got on Josh Conerly and what the Commanders did last night?
Hey, Craig. Thanks for taking my call. Happy Friday. It was
Happy Friday,
really,
indeed.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was a really solid pick. I mean, just really solid. Not the most beautiful, out there pick as far as getting an edge, but really, really solid. And clearly, the team is considering Jaden Daniels so much, which I can truly appreciate. And the two things that stand out to me is, one, they are really actively trying to avoid a regression with what C.J. Stroud had last year with their O-line, because their O-line was not that great, and ironically, Tunsil is now on our team, but I digress. And then secondly, it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems apparent that we're probably going to pick up a running back at some point in this draft. So had we gotten an edge rusher maybe in the first round or second round and with one of those two picks, we probably would have needed to get a running back that accentuated playmaking ability. But now that we added another tackle to add to the O-line, or they're going to move him to guard, whatever that might be, whatever they decide to do, it gives us the freedom to really just pick the best running back available based off of Adam's board. So I think it's a win-win, really. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the results for the draft. And, yeah, it's a solid pick, really solid. I like it a lot. So.
Thanks, Noel. Yeah, I think to an extent that's almost even overcomplicating it. I think Josh Conerly was the best player on the board. I kind of think it might have been by a lot. Just they took him. It doesn't have to be always 3D chess. All these other factors are nice bonuses, but they're icing, not cake. This isn't the milk, eggs, and the flour. It's no, Josh Conerly was a pre-made cake mix, and all you had to do was add water and bake or something. I don't know how many cake mixes are just add water. None of the bakers yell at me. Bark. Anyway, the point is, Anthony, do you get that reference? You don't watch Great British Bake Off, do you?
I do not.
You should. It's pure British joy. I think you would love that show.
Maybe.
Only one way to find out. You got a homework assignment this weekend. In the middle of NHL, NBA playoffs, and the NFL draft, you have to watch Great British Bake Off. Anyway, the point is absolutely none of that. I think Josh Conerly is just flat out the best player for the Commanders. And the fact that there's a very deep running back class, not a very particularly deep offensive tackle class, and a fairly deep edge class is a very nice perk. And I think this is also where the run on corners happens. You might miss it because I think there could be 5 or 6 guys that go, but there's a couple names that I'll throw at you now, like Quincy Riley. They met with the kid 4 times, including a top 30 visit. Now, is he probably a little rich at 61 and he's probably gone at 128? Probably for both, but maybe he's around at 128. Or maybe they can trade off of 61, pick up another 4th, and pick him up in the 70s. Something like that could definitely be possible. And then even there's a couple other names, a couple other positions. You're oh, they met with him 4 times. Basil Tootin, the running back out of Virginia Tech, they met with him 4 times, including a top 30 visit. So there certainly are guys that I think are probably higher on their list that at the very least they're very familiar with. They wanted to get to know. Let's go to Ray. Ray, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
What's up, Craig? How you doing, man?
I'm good, bro. How are you?
I'm doing fine, man. Happy Friday to you. Hey, look here. I think that was a real good pick, man. You got the number 5 offensive lineman total on the board, on the whole draft board. And if he was number 1 lineman on their board, man, they made the right pick. Because at 29, you can't go wrong with it. As far as what they're gonna do with this pick right here, it's a whole lot of ways they could do it, man. There's no sense in reaching for a running back because my number 1 running back was Omari Hampton, but he's gone. Everybody else is, 1.5 tier. Because after Genty and Hampton, they're 1s and everybody else is 1.5. Tootin, good running back, but he got to hold on to the ball. I wouldn't mind having him because once again, the open, nobody's going to catch him. But the player that you need to watch out for, who they should have their eye on, is a kid from Texas. And he's a safety. His name is Andrew Makuba. He's 6 feet 190, and he's a straight baller. You hear me? A baller. They get him, they won't have to look for another safety, just like they won't have to look for another offensive lineman for a good while. And as far as the edge is concerned, I know everybody wants these flashy edges. I'm going to tell you something. It's an edge on the board nobody is talking about. He's not flashy, but he's real productive. His name is David Walker from Central Arkansas, a la Monty Coleman's alma mater. They need to look at that kid, man. The kid can straight ball for an edge rusher. He's real good. Everybody want to get these flashy names and everything. No, get the ballers. Those two guys there, man, and those three guys that I said, if you can reach for them, I mean, if you can get them, you don't have to reach for them. You can wait for probably the fourth round. All of them will be there except for Makuba. Makuba, if you can get him in the second round, if he's there, if you don't get Jaden Higgins, because that's my man. I got to take Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins is my number one receiver for real. I got to get him because he's a taller Terry McLaurin, a mold Terry McLaurin, but he's just taller. But all those kids, man, they can flat out ball and I'm gone. Bye.
All right. Ray the Scout joined us here on the Team 980. Makuba's interesting. Nobody's talking about David Walker. Anthony, was that the first time David Walker's name was mentioned on this radio show today?
I thought you were talking about David Walker, my classmate.
No. He could be, though, because you ain't that much older than the David Walker from Central Arkansas. Yeah. We literally talked about him 30 minutes ago. I'd hope as hell that he was productive. He played at an FCS school, and he's 25 years old. He's also super sawed-off, shorter guy. Like, I'm not telling you he can't play. Like, it's actually, I got to pull this up because it's one of my favorite write-ups. I found it this morning. Actually, you want to know what? We talk about David Walker in the Take Command segment we're about to play. And the really hilarious line from Dane Brugler in The Beast is in there. So instead of reading it to you twice, I'm just going to get us to break on time. And then when we come back, you'll hear the funny line about David Walker. Also, Jaden Higgins being a taller Terry McLaurin. That is a wild-ass take. Makuba's interesting, though. Who does Logan think that we should take? That is what you're going to hear next on the Team 980. But at least we got Ray's take in. Clinton Yates joins us at 5:30 talking about Shedeur Sanders' slide into the second round. But right now, Logan Paulson, take command style in just a moment as today's edition of Not My Beat. Talking about what the Commanders do tonight, round 2 of the NFL draft. We've got coverage with Denton Day and Linnell Willingham coming up a little bit later on after Nats and Mets here on the Team 980. But real quick before we let you hear the conversation I had this morning with Logan, who's got just the best depth of knowledge of anyone in DC media when it comes to these prospects. Was there any pressure, or is there any pressure on Adam Peters tonight to go defense after going offense in round 1, especially considering the defense is kind of what most people consider the weaker side of the ball on his roster?
I think it's just looking at our board and picking the highest player on our board. So I don't think there's any pressure to pick a defensive guy, except I'd feel bad for Joe Witt a little bit, but he was extremely supportive of this pick too. He's a great team guy. All jokes aside, but no, there's no real pressure to do that, to force a pick on the defensive side of the ball. It's just trying to pick the best commander for us.
Sorry, Joe, but best player available it is. So who are some of those best players that might be available? Let's get into it on Take Command.
Looking at kind of the strength of the draft in the second round, I think you could maybe go receiver, but those edge rushers seem very, very deep. And then the defensive back kind of conglomerate feels very kind of dense at this moment too. So basically, if you're, you're worried that they didn't take a defensive player in the first round, they didn't at a corner or a defensive lineman. I think when you look at kind of the people that are available, like the positions of strength, so just kind of going through the big board right now, I think there's a kind of a good staple of receivers that fit this build. I think there's one offensive tackle. I think there's one or two guards that would fall in this bucket. But then I was looking at edge rushers, and I was like, gosh, dang, like you got Donovan Ezeraku, Nick Scordon, Landon Jackson, JT Tuimalau, Femi Oladipo, Prince Yellen, Brandon Swinson, Jordan Birch, Jack Sawyer, and David Walker that I think could all reasonably go at 61. So that's a lot of people. What is that, like to 9 people, 10 people? And then you got a couple defensive tackles, probably 4 or 5. You got 2 interior linebackers I think could go. And then you got a couple corners, right? And I think or cornerbacks and safety. So you got Ravel, you got Trey Amos, you got Benjamin Morris, Xavier Watson, Azari Thomas, Jacob Parrish, and Kevin Winston Jr. And I think that's all very reasonable there. So to me, looking at kind of the strength of the draft in the second round, I think you could maybe go receiver, but those edge rushers seem very, very deep. And then the defensive back kind of conglomerate feels very kind of dense at this moment too. So basically, if you're, you're worried that they didn't take a defensive player in the first round, they didn't at a corner or a defensive lineman, like there's definitely a very real option for that to happen here in the second round of 61.
And you have the ultimate fallback of running back in this draft, where only 2 go in the first round. So no Travion Henderson, no Caleb Johnson, no anybody else popping up. So you have the full slew of running backs you expected. You have an extra safety because I think we mostly expected Eman Wari. We have 2 extra edges, Ezeraku and Green. Yeah. Now, Green, I don't know at what point, is it, hey, we're not going to take him in the first round? Or there are definitely going to be teams that are we're not taking him at all. So how far does he fall and where does Washington fit on that? Obviously, the Will Johnson thing is someone's going to take the risk eventually. So I think it is pretty fascinating. In terms of guys that went on 30 visits, that are still on the board and potentially available at 61. I think it's worth mentioning, Logan, although it would be a mistake to think that they are exclusively picking from this list.
No, but I just think it's the reason, like we were talking about this earlier, like the reason we're just calling attention to this is that these are people that they have talked to. Like Mike Green came on a visit, right? Does that mean they're going to draft him? Doesn't look like it, right? But like there are some guys here that I think are interesting names that, having watched a lot of film of them, having talked to people about them, I think probably fit that Commanders tag fairly acutely. So that's kind of why we're talking about them.
For sure. And, 30 visits can be, hey, we want to talk to you. Adam literally said this last night. We can talk to you and confirm what or talk to you can confirm, or it can deny what we thought. But confirm doesn't mean that we like you. It could confirm that we don't like you.
Right.
That we brought you in for a reason because we had questions, and the answers did not alleviate those concerns. So, of guys that came on 30 visits, let's see here. Ezraku came on a 30 visit, so I doubt he's still available at 61, and we don't know what they found. Trey Harris, receiver from Ole Miss, is that too rich for him?
No, I think that's probably right in line, but I do think at the press conference yesterday, Adam was like, yeah, someone said, what about defense at 61? He's like, yeah, maybe, obviously, like, we're not going to rule anything out, but I would feel bad for Joe Wood Jr. if we didn't pick a defensive. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that it felt like, obviously,
I think they would like to go defense, but they're in that same quote. He's like, "We're going to trust the board." Like, and it's something that I really appreciate about them is they don't look at the draft as a 2025 thing. Like, how do we build the best football team moving forward? And if they know that their entire receiver room, outside of Luke McCaffrey and Terry McLaurin once he signs his extension, they all could be gone next year. So, like, taking a receiver is not crazy. Caleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa. Oladejo, the edge out of UCLA. How far down is Quincy Riley on the corner list? Because they met with him like 4 times, including a 30 visit.
So I have not, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I have not watched him yet. I get these lists from like PFF, and he was not on the list at the beginning of the season, but I've heard that they do like him. And again, like, he felt like, at least I looked him up last night, like he's in like that 5th round, like 120 kind of range. So 4th round, I guess that would be. But, like, if you really like him, potentially that's a spot for him.
So here's why I'm going to mention him as watch out, even though he could very much wind up there. Dane's got him as a 3rd, 4th round guy. But listen to the guys that are around him. So he's his 11th corner. Noah Williams is his 8th quarter. Jacob Parrish is his 9th quarter. Benjamin Morrison is his 10th quarter. Darian Porter is his 12th corner.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's a dense group there. And if he's in the same range as, like, even Noah Williams and Jacob Parrish and Noah Williams are 2 of my favorite defensive backs in this class. And so the fact that he's sitting right there, I kind of would cluster them in the same group. But yeah, that's an interesting, that's very illuminating for sure.
Jonas Sanker from Virginia, the safety.
Oh, the safety, yeah.
He was at a 30. They met with him a ton. I think he might have been is he a 4 guy? Let's see. Yep, four different. So that's like, I don't have the list back in front of me again, but like Senior Bowl, Combine, Team Pro Day, 30 visit, but like definitely 30 visit, and they visited with him 4 times. He's Dane's 6th safety, 3rd round grade from Brugler.
And I kind of went through, and I do this thing because, like, last year they had a type. They had long arm. It's the same kind of thing they did with Conerly, right? They have to meet certain athletic thresholds, like 34-inch arms, like fast 40, like blah, 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 blah. So that's kind of how you pick the offensive lineman, right? They met with Anthony Belton, who, like, is an offense. He's like, he ran a 5'1". He's got 35-inch arm. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they've got a kind of box they have their offensive lineman in. And with the safeties, I remember looking like Tyler Owens, 33-inch arms. Dominique Hampton, 33-inch arms. They like the length, and a lot of safety coaches that I talked to in the league, they like the length of their defensive backs because it allows them to play man coverage. And I think he's 32.5, which was one of the longer arm lengths of defensive backs at the combine this year. Is that right?
30. 6 foot and a quarter, 205. 32.5-inch arms. Ran a 4.48 with a 1.61 split. 36.5-inch vertical, but a 10.8 broad jump.
And then what was his wingspan? Is it on there? I don't want to put you on the spot. If it's
yeah, it is. 78 inches at his pro day.
Yeah, so like he's a big safety, right? And like he plays at and around the line of scrimmage. He's very productive. He's physical. He's a little stiff to my eye, but I remember watching him being like, this guy feels like a kind of a Jeremy Chin guy that has a little bit more athletic upside. So I think that's a really interesting pick. And I do think 61 is not out of the question there if you really, really like the prospect.
Yeah, and especially again, if he's in that big extra large bucket because you
Correct.
don't pick again until 128. He's probably not going to be there. Last guy, Belton, by the way, did come on a 30 visit. I just didn't mention him because I would be stunned if they went offensive line again.
Could you imagine? They might go offensive line at another point in this draft, but like going at 29 and 61. I mean, I like Belton a lot. Like he's one of I think
at that point we start screaming, "What in the Atlanta Falcons is going on here?" Got to get one in. David Walker is the last guy that I'll mention, unless you got anything. Jalen Smith, corner out of Southern Cal. He's probably a little bit lower.
Good football player, but I think a little bit lower. They had another interesting name on there. He was like
Carlin Vigors, Louisiana Monroe.
Yes, yeah, he's an interesting guy. 6'2", 200 pounds, good length. Feels like in that 4th round range. But again, if you love him and you think he's anywhere from the 61 to 128, he's on the board here. But I do think the 2 edge rushers that they mentioned, they get me I get the warm fuzzies for those guys, right? Because we've talked about Femi Oladipo. He's a Bruin. But I told this story to Kime this morning. We were talking on the phone. And like, I remember, I don't know if I told this on this show, but there was a moment in the Senior Bowl practice where they were doing like a red zone kind of team run period. And he was on the field or he was on the sideline and someone made a tackle and he like sprinted on the field, dapped everybody up. And just the defensive energy, it was kind of a flat practice, just went through the freaking roof. You know what I mean? So next play, tackle for loss. He's talking mess to everybody. And you're just like, that, like I get tingles just thinking about it, right? Like that gets me excited. And again, he's making a transition from off-ball linebacker to edge. The edge stuff at the Senior Bowl was excellent. And not the best bender, but the competitor, the toughness. Like he had a period where it was like, we wanted to see you do off-ball linebacker coverage stuff. And so he just popped over and started covering running backs. And I was like, that's what you, in terms of versatile, competitive, tough, love it. And then David Walker is this little short, I like traitsy, big, tall edge rushers. So he's 6 foot. He's almost 270. He's got 31 and a quarter inch arms, 3/4. So not a big guy, but I'm being totally honest here. He did not lose one pass rush rep at the Senior Bowl. Oof. So like, he's got great power. He walks people back into the quarterback, and he feels like a guy that could have 10 sacks in the NFL. Like his rush profile is very unique. It's short, sawed off, think like Brandon Graham type guy. But both those guys, to me at 61, are like very, very. I would be stoked if either one of them came. I'd be like on the show. I'd be like, yeah, I wouldn't be doing Fred Davis, you know what I mean? But I'd be pretty stoked about both those guys.
You also got guys like Jordan Birch, who's obviously a teammate at Oregon of Conerly. By the way, we'll wrap up with this because I know we're running short on time here. Logan and I said, we'll try to go like 30 minutes. We don't need to do a full 45-minute episode. Here we are, 41 minutes in. Classic take command style. How about this from the beast from David Walker's profile? When studying FCS tape, you shouldn't need to know a player's number, and that is absolutely true with Walker, who quickly jumps out as the best player on the field, even on Central Arkansas's terrible purple and gray field. Dane throwing shots.
It is purple
Dane's
and
just
gray.
like bombs. I don't care. Central Arkansas. Play on green grass.
You watch him at Central Arkansas, and you're like, this is
not
like
fair.
This is ridiculous. Like
I will say with him, he's also like 25 years old.
Is he really? I didn't realize he was that old.
Yeah, 6-year senior. He's 24.89 on the age, so we're going to be 25 before the season starts. So I hope if you're a 25-year-old playing at Central Arkansas that you absolutely are killing people. That's if you're an NFL prospect. I would hope.
How old was Femi Oladipo?
Oladipo is not even 22. He's like 21 and a half.
Young, spry, got good joints still. Yeah, let's get that going.
Birch is like 23. Jackson's 22. Scorton's the fun one. He's not even 21 yet.
Dude, I doubt he's there at 61, but I like him. Landon Jackson, love him. Scorton, love him. Femi Oladipo, love him. Dave Walker, love him. And so the fact there's 4 dudes that you're just like, and again, there's other guys that I'm not even mentioning, like the kid from LSU. I really like
Swinson. What about Josiah Stewart, Michigan? I've heard some people that really like him.
He's interesting because he ran a 4.9 at his pro day.
Whew.
And he's not a big man. And so he has some juice. It shows up for sure. But I would be, we talked about the Donovan Zaraku, kind of like, do you have the athletic upside to rush at the NFL level? Maybe it was a 4.89. It was very, very slow for a guy that does not look that way on film.
Interesting. All right. Well, that's there's a bunch of names that could become Commanders, or someone else will.
Want more from Craig and Logan? Subscribe now on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. More Hoffman Show next on the Team 980 and the free Odyssey app.
Coming up at 5:30, we will get to our conversation with Clint Yates on Shedeur Sanders. 5:45, some other. Anthony, I refuse to call them winners and losers in the NFL draft because I actually hate. We don't know who won and lost till like 5 years from now. So, calling them that is dumb.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
But we can do hat taps and head scratchers. Or hat tips and head scratchers.
Okay.
Like, hey, I see you. I like what you're doing. Or like, I don't get that one. By the way, I think that's an original thing. I don't think I've heard that anywhere else. I don't think I'm pulling that from the recesses of my mind because I've seen it. And we should write that down because I feel like that's a good segment title.
Okay.
Hat tips and head scratchers. Or head scratchers and hat tips. Which one do we like better? You got till 5:45 to decide.
All right.
I need you to decide right now who you want in the second round of the NFL draft for the Commanders. Anybody that jumps out at you that you're like, Lord, please.
I mean, edge would definitely be something or a position that I feel like we should address. And if it's not edge, then corner. I think we do need to go defensive, unless Travion Henderson falls to 2.
I mean, I think running back is definitely interesting, and there's definitely a good chance that there's a very, very good and intriguing back that's on the board at 61. The thing is with running back, the flavors are so different.
Yeah, I think we can wait on those.
Right.
Unless it's Travion, though.
But, like, that's your favorite. And I'm not saying that I would not also make the same move. What I am telling you is there are other people who like other backs more, and that makes trying to figure out the value piece a lot harder. I kind of think they're guys tooting from Virginia Tech just because they met with them a zillion times. And that, like, I think a lot of their 30 visits are spent on guys they want to just confirm and have a good time, have a good feel, have a good vibe with, especially those guys they bring in late to the Topgolf visit. Now, there's guys like Mike Green where I think they're bringing you in because they got a real question. They want to sit you down and talk to you face-to-face and be like, hey, bro, like, what the hell happened here? What's up? And then they don't like the answer, and so they pass on you. Ezraku, they brought in for a 30 visit. They obviously liked Josh Conerly more. So I don't know what that 30 visit was necessarily about. I also think like Ezraku could have been the guy last night if Conerly wasn't on the board potentially, because Adam said I didn't think that Conerly was going to be on the board for us. He was starting to sweat after Banks went off the board at 9. It was like, oh God, are the Bears going to take him at 10? Luckily for Adam, the Bears spent $1 zillion on a zillion offensive linemen in free agency, and so they elected to take Colson Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan. But I think there's some the edge guys are definitely interesting, and there's like 4 or 5. I don't think Scorton falls that far. Maybe Oladejo does. I think Ezraku still being there helps because that's going to push down. Green's the wild card just because, like, obviously if a team is like, we're not taking a first-round pick on that, because to me there's 3 things for Green. There's like 3 tiers for Mike Green, right? He's off your board entirely, which I think teams like Philadelphia, not on their board. I would not be surprised if here he's not on their board. It doesn't matter. There could be 700 rounds of the NFL draft, and they would not take Mike Green because Howie Roseman said, if you've got a violence against women, situation on your player card, and we do our due diligence and we don't think it's false, we're like there's legitimacy to it at all, I don't even watch the tape. So Howie Roseman, in theory, and anybody else who thinks like him, which he's not the only one, he just said it on Todd McShay's show and got a lot of praise for it, as he should. It doesn't matter what you think of the player. You don't know what you think of the player because you don't even bother watching the tape. And so he's literally not on their board. There are other teams that will say, we're not going to spend a first-round pick, but eventually the talent becomes enough that, like, it's worth the risk because we're not necessarily making a moral judgment. We are making a football judgment of we are scared that this could happen again, and you are going to be unavailable to us, suspended or jailed. And if that's the case, then, or we feel like we have to cut you for PR reasons, that's not worth a first rounder, but by the second, third, fourth rounder, that's worth it to us. And there are teams that will do that. And so if there's a team like that in the second round that feels like that for Mike Green, he could definitely come off the board. And if he does, that pushes Femi Oladejo and maybe Ezraku, Nick Scorton. It pushes all those guys down. So there's a bunch of teams that need edges and some who didn't attack that. Obviously, a team like Tampa, talk about head scratcher. Like, I didn't think there was a team that could draft Emeka Egbuka, and I'd be like, what are you doing? But, like, Tampa kind of is that team. They're ahead of Washington. Detroit is ahead of Washington. They went defensive line yesterday, but they need an edge. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. And then I wonder if there's a run on corners. And Maxwell Hairston was a guy that I thought could go in the second round. Instead, he goes in the first, but we all thought Will Johnson would go in the first until the very last second. Now he's going to go in the second, assuming that he's not red flagged medically and has a DeJuan Jones-esque slide, third, fourth round. So, yeah, I think that the positions that Washington needs are very likely to be the top one. The other name that I'll throw out there that I'm mad that Logan and I did not talk about is Carson Schwessinger, the linebacker out of UCLA. I think they like him a lot because his name keeps coming up from people like John Keim. And I know they don't need a linebacker, but it's the kind of thing where if he's on the board somehow at 61, I think there's definitely a chance he's their highest ranked guy, and they could go that direction. So just stick that in your back pocket. I think there's a really good chance he's off the board by 61 anyway, But just, some things to consider, some names to know. We know they're not going to take Shedeur Sanders. One, he's not going to be available at 61. I don't think. Although, I'm telling you, if the Browns pass on him, I don't know where he goes because the Saints don't like him. They didn't even do a full homework assignment on him, according to Daniel Jeremiah last night. So who knows? But we know he ain't coming here. Why is he still on the board? What happened? Clint Yates knows Shador real well and Dion real well. He's done a lot of coverage of that program over the last couple of years. Clinton's going to join us first Friday visit, talking Shedeur Sanders slide next on the Team 980. The Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube too, of course, at the Team 980, where you see television and radios. Clinton Yates, of course, host of Clinton and Friends on ESPN Radio. Morning time, you can check it out on the ESPN app. Hello, sir. Happy Friday.
Hey, buddy. How are you? How was your draft day?
Draft day was busy. It was fun, though. Like, I felt energized all day yesterday.
Good.
We did an extra hour of the show. I did live stream and then take command stuff last night. It was way past my bedtime. I mean,
Right.
Again, if the Commanders want to continue being good and my punishment is one day a year, I got to stay up a little extra later, I'll take it. But it was,
You didn't have
it was
to
a
be
long,
in Green
fun
Bay,
day.
Wisconsin. You know what I'm saying?
Bingo, bango. People kept asking me if I was going to go this year because I was in Detroit last year. And I was
Right.
like, last year they had the second pick. We knew who they were going to take. That guy was there. And it's an airport that is actually fairly popular to fly in and out of.
Sure.
That
Not happening in Wisconsin.
None of that is true this year for the
Correct.
Commanders and or the city of Green Bay, where apparently the locals have gotten mad that everyone just makes cheese curd jokes. I'm like, you brought it upon yourselves.
Yeah, what? You're Wisconsin. You're supposed to be making cheese curd jokes. I don't get it.
I said this last night on the live stream. I was like, every single city gets reduced to this three things, no matter if it's not a small town America thing. Like, oh, hey, look, it's a Jets-Giants game in New York City. Here's the Empire State Building, even though they play in New Jersey.
Right. Well, I mean, it is a small town America thing, though, because, hello, Green Bay, Wisconsin is a small town in America.
No, but
What
I'm
are you
saying
doing?
it's like a
I
sports
see what
thing.
you're saying, but, like, if you're actually a small town, you cannot be mad about the thing that people actually know you for as a small town. It's crazy.
Right.
Anyway.
And I did find it pretty funny that Ashton Genty, who went to Boise State, was like, yeah, there's not a whole lot to do here. So, Green Bay, you've been a lovely host.
very well.
There's some stuff you're just going to have to deal with. So welcome to the limelight, kids.
Bingo.
We're going to talk about Shedeur Sanders, though, who did not go last night. The Colorado quarterback who you spent a fair amount of time with over the last couple of years covering that program, falls out of the first round. First of all, do you agree with that characterization that he fell out of the first round?
I do, but I also don't necessarily think that's the worst case scenario. Now, the only reason I believe that characterization is because, well, they had put those expectations on him. Prime himself had talked about this. And, you know, I this is a situation where for once I actually feel bad for the young man because part of the issue was twofold. Number one, hype has two elements to it. Number one, it can giveth and it can taketh away. And in this situation, he was kind of paired up with Travis Hunter as this kind of package scenario coming out of Colorado. They never were going to have the same path to NFL greatness. Not even close. Number one, because Shador plays quarterback, which is an entirely different position as far as how it's scrutinized. And number two, because Travis is just a better football player. And like, that's not some like major argument between other people. So the idea that like Travis was going to go top 5 and it was just going to be kind of a matter of time before Shador got picked, I always thought was unfair to the quarterback. And it showed up yesterday, particularly in a draft where, you know, quarterback need was not necessarily at the premium it once was. I mean, the position overall wasn't highly picked outside of Cam Ward at the top. So that combination of things, I think, led to kind of not a humiliating situation, but certainly an unfortunate one regarding a kid that's got to put himself on cameras in front of the world, ultimately to not have that kind of dream fulfilled, if you want to call it that, in one night.
For sure. Shedor's such an interesting prospect, and I have said this on the show before, but I will admit it here for anyone who hasn't heard it. Like, I didn't study the quarterbacks this year. I just flat out didn't study them because for the first time in most people's listening lives, Washington knows who their quarterback is for the foreseeable future.
It wasn't
I mean,
necessary.
I guess we thought in 2012 we had that figured out with Robert, but even then, like Kirk was the backup. They weren't going to go quarterback in 2013, 2014 on through Cousins' time here. But like, I knew that I don't have to look at these quarterbacks, so I didn't spend time on, especially because there's so many other guys to watch. But Shedeur is 6'1", like 215. His arm is not amazing. He's not a great athlete. Like he's good at a bunch of stuff, but good doesn't necessarily get you drafted in the first round. And so the idea that he's a second round prospect or even a third rounder, like, is actually probably the correct football thing. The thing that I'm more interested in asking you about, though, Clinton, is there's then all the stuff that, like, you have multiple people who were like, that's the worst interview I've ever had. His board work wasn't good.
Yeah.
You know, there's an entitlement where, you know, he's talking about, I want input on the playbook. I think some of that stuff can be spun. But some of that I think is very real. And I'm curious, as someone who knows him and kind of, you know, understands his vibe, how you read a lot of those quotes and the things that come out.
I think all of that is very real. This also comes with the caveat that I say all the time, which is that quarterback is the worst coach position in the league, meaning if you've got a problem with him being this way, then maybe the problem is with you in terms of how you approach things. I'm not saying that outright. I'm saying that I can understand why certain teams are saying this guy can't go this high on our board. It creates too much of a leverage situation. We don't know how to handle it anyway in terms of what we actually think he's going to do. We're just not doing it. That makes sense to me. Does that directly translate to what I think his actual talent level is? I don't know, but that's why the draft is such a goofy operation to begin with. There's so many other factors as to why certain people go certain places. I will say this. You talk about the measurables. You talk about sort of what you look at when you're thinking about who does what. And like, yeah, Shedeur Sanders has the skill to be an excellent system quarterback in the NFL. This is your reminder that the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL was effectively a great system quarterback. All these ideas that teams have where people have to have booming stats off the break in order to be considered the top guy. I think this is part of the problem with how people coach their quarterbacks to begin with. Maybe you do want to get a guy that can just kind of handle the lights and is smart enough to be able to get into different systems and just do what they are told as they develop, as opposed to somebody who you've got to rearrange your entire playbook for because that's their skill set already. That's where I think there's a philosophical issue that is really fascinating for me. And people act like I'm crazy because I keep mentioning Tom Brady all the time. And I say the only reason I mention that guy is because if you had them both play and you looked at them in terms of like graphical representations of they're kind of boring guys that don't really get around the pocket a lot. They just make good decisions on lower, occasionally a deep ball or so, and then they just don't make mistakes. If that's the kind of player you think you can develop a quarterback into, that's where a Shedeur Sanders makes sense for you. It's not necessarily going to be the guy that you say, I need him to stretch the field. I need him to be able to do it with his feet. No. That's not the player he was ever going to be, just because it happened to be a little bit of that at Colorado. And I think that gulf is what the hard part is for a lot of NFL teams.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely a lot of points there. I mean, Brady ultimately wound up being one of the great pocket movers of all time. Like, obviously, he couldn't get out of the pocket, and it's something that is a concern with Shedeur. Brady had prototypical height, but also, like, let's not pretend like he was some super prospect because he was a sixth round. Like, we all know he was picked 199. Yeah. So, you know, I think what you're saying is more important to swallow than it is to try to pick apart. I think the other part of that, though, is who are you as a kid and who are you as a man and who are you as a professional? And I think that is where, and again, I think your point is one that should be taken seriously. This might say something more about the coaches than the kid. But if you're the coach and making it, you have to feel comfortable with the kid to say, okay, you don't have the rocket arm, you don't have the raw materials, you don't have the size. Are you going to put in the work to be so good at the craft that you're going to succeed anyway? And unfortunately, the way Shedeur rubs off on people, I don't think people leave those meetings feeling warm and fuzzy. And ultimately, they're the one with the pick. And I think that is also in part why we land where we are today, where he's available this evening for selection on day 2.
Right. But that also depends on what you're looking for immediately out of the player. And this is, again, where I get to the strength of a program and the quality of a franchise. And I'm going to give you an example of where I think this could work at the end of me explaining this. Okay. If you want a guy that's going to come in and prove something to you regarding whatever you think their talent should be, and that's like more important to you than whether or not they can develop at a rate that you're determining, okay. But also,
well, I think, hold on real quick. I think those things are tied, though. Is like
they are.
Your rate of development is going to depend on the work. It's not about proving it. It's about
but
will you get there?
I don't necessarily know that they are as tied in. How to explain this? This is part of the problem, in my personal opinion, with how a lot of these teams look at things. So throw kids in the fires. They won't have any sort of clear demarcation of what makes sense for development. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you weren't working hard enough. It's like, whoa. What was the actual goal here? I'll just use Jackson Dart as an example. Okay, you got Russell Wilson there. You got Jameson to back up. Because of the way that the coach and the GM are fighting for their jobs, if Russell Wilson starts to suck, are you just going to throw Jackson Dart in there and then all of a sudden say, well, the development didn't go, the kid wasn't working hard enough, blah, blah, blah. Look, I don't know. You know what I mean? And I like Jackson Dart a lot. I think he is a flat-out better quarterback than Shedeur Sanders, and I don't think that's really particularly stressful to say. But what I'm saying is, and this is now is when I'll use the example. If he goes to a team like the Los Angeles Rams, that has their system that they've got a quarterback who's a veteran. They aren't worried about a second or third round pick suddenly coming in to make them something other than what they are. Is that going to be a system that he can thrive in? Whether or not this idea of are you working hard enough or not, do you fit into the system is actually what is going to matter in that situation. And I think he's got the IQ to do that. He's played in 5 different offenses since he's been in college because Prime loves running through offensive coordinators. I don't think it's going to be an IQ thing. I don't think it's going to be a work ethic thing. It's going to be an expectation thing versus a trust in yourself thing. And that's why I think the Rams would actually be a pretty good team for him to go to. On a lot of levels. Not that a lot of other quarterbacks wouldn't do well in that scenario, but specifically for him, that would be a very interesting scenario under a coach who is self-confident, who has done it in different ways with different types of quarterbacks. Absolutely.
I totally agree that I don't think there's a better fit. I mean, look, if I was a quarterback anywhere, I'd want to go play for Sean McVay. Right. But I think specifically for Shador, for all of these reasons, Sean is right. Clint Yates with us for just another minute here on the Hoffman Show. Last thing I'll ask you, though, is something that I actually don't worry about in LA as much, but I will lean on your relationship with Prime and, professional relationship with Prime here to answer this. If I am a team that's not LA, and maybe I'm not like Pittsburgh because Mike Tomlin doesn't give a rip, but I'm a lot of these other places, and I'm drafting him knowing I'm going to start him as a backup, and there's a really good chance that if I'm drafting him, my top option's not that good. How, are you concerned with, we'd call it meddling, pressure, whatever? Because I think that is another story that has emerged, and that's one where I'm like, Deion's been around the NFL a long time. Deion knows how this works. That feels a little off to me, but do you think that is that a concern you would have if you were a team?
I think, honestly, that might be the number one reason why he didn't go in the first round. And not just because of, spite, but because there's that 5th extra year. And when you've got that 5th extra year that you've got to negotiate if you go in the first round, it changes the nature of the relationship with how long you're going to have to deal with that. And I do think that there is something to be said where if you're a 2nd round pick, that extra 5th year isn't part of it. Therefore,
the expectations change too.
The expectations change drastically, and you're not looking at a situation where Prime is constantly looming over your head because you haven't invested the same amount of money into it. I don't even think it's personal at that point. I think it has as much to do with the function of how the CBA works as anything. And if you're looking to avoid a scenario where you're tied in potentially to something longer than you have to be if it doesn't go right, you're just not going to do it because of the fact that he's got one of the greatest football players of all time as his mentor and his dad. So yeah, I do think that's related, but I don't think it's because any particular franchise is looking at that like, I can't have Prime in my building. You're going to have Prime in your building, and that's just part of it. It's just a matter of how you manage that.
I think that's a big factor. If you're telling me I'm going to have that, dad in the building, even if he's Deion Sanders, coach's ego. And again, I'm not saying this is necessarily a good thing because I think if you're smart, you can welcome him into the building in the right ways and be like, hey man, you're Deion Sanders. I would like to lean on that resource, but I'm the head coach and you know how it is as a head coach. So we're going to have a respectful, good relationship, but you know how NFL coaches are with their egos.
I do.
And there are dudes that are going to be like, ain't no way. And I do think managing that is really important because you don't want to feel like the young quarterback's dad is running the locker room with a bunch of grown men. There's dynamics to manage there, but I think someone like Sean McVay could do that really well. I think there's a lot of other coaches who couldn't do it very well and don't want to deal with it, and thus Shedeur Sanders might not even be on their board.
I don't disagree with you, but the idea of I don't want to deal with it is not a default definition of I might not get better. You know what I'm saying? There's a situation where you might need somebody to walk in and say, hey, it might not even have anything to do with his own son. The guy knows what he's doing. He's been around. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You can look at it as a threat. You can look at it as also an additional resource and a football mind, even just on the smallest level, to let you know every once in a while, hey, what do you think about this? The guy doesn't have to take over everything. He's Deion Sanders, all right? He's got his own thing. And the assumption that he's going to want to walk in and usurp everybody in order to be able to contribute at all, I just think is the sign of somebody that is, I don't know, not you, I'm saying, but a coach that is otherwise just overly insecure.
Yeah, no, 100%. And boy, is there some insecurity amongst NFL coaching staffs across this league. Clinton Yates, you can catch him on the radio, Clinton and Friends, weekdays in the morning. Also listen on the ESPN app. Anything else? You did a lot of Star Wars talking today.
Yes, I was just about to say I'm ready to stop talking on this microphone, Gregory. So I appreciate you and have a good weekend.
Just last thing to say, what if people want to listen to the Star Wars podcast? It's called
Never Tell Me the Odds. It's myself, Ryan McGee, and Arda Ocal. We did a full season breakdown in 4 different episodes of season 2 of Andor, starring Diego Luna.
Bingo. Clinton Yates, everybody. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We are always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. And coming up at 6 o'clock, our final segment today, as we will, of course, have the Nationals and Mets coming at you. 6:15 Nats on deck. 6:45 first pitch against the Metropolitans. We will go inside the NFC East. But other than that, Anthony, we're going to do right now real quickly head scratchers and hat tips. So a hat tip, like, hey, nice job. I see ya. Head scratchers, I'm going to give us one each. You know what my head scratcher is, and we have audio to go with it, right? You pulled that, Anthony?
Yeah, I have the audio.
Okay, excellent. So we'll get to that last. So I'll let you go first. You get your first hat tip, and I'll go my hat tip, and then you go your head scratcher, and then we'll go my head scratcher. So who's the team that you're like, hey, I see you. Well done in the first round of the NFL draft?
I think it started after the first pick. I think the Browns trading down to number 5, trading back, getting Mason Graham, and then also acquiring a 2026 first. I think they did what needed to be done. They also didn't overthink it. Mason Graham, top 5 talent in this year's draft. Like, I think it was a no-brainer going with the position. And I think they didn't decide to go with Travis because they already have like talent in their secondary. It wasn't necessarily a position to need, but I think a guy like Mason Graham can definitely, play alongside a Myles Garrett and make things a little bit easier for him. So
yeah,
I say the Browns.
I actually like the other side of that trade. I was actually thinking about making that my hat tip. I'll go a different direction.
I mean, it worked for both sides.
Yeah,
I agree.
No, I respect the GM and the new administration, and they're doing kind of what Tennessee did to Will Levis last year. Like, Trevor Lawrence is a lot better than Will Levis, but it's like, hey, bro, we're gonna find out if you can play quarterback because we're giving you Travis Hunter as a wide receiver, and we gave you some other dudes, and you got Calvin Ridley. Like, we're gonna find out. Ridley's in Tennessee now. Like, we got some dudes. We got Brian Thomas Jr. We're gonna find out if you can play, and if not, we're gonna go in a different direction. But you got 1 year with Liam Cohen, and if not, we're gonna make some moves. And I actually love that from Jacksonville. Armand Membu might be the most sensible pick in the entire draft for the Jets at 7. They have Fashanu last year at left tackle. Membu played right tackle, and everyone just assumed he'd be a top 10 pick and switch to left wherever he went. Now he just gets to play right tackle. So New York Jets, making sense. Not something that happens often. A little scared for Armand Membu because nothing for the Jets ever works out. But it just feels like an actual smart thing that they did.
Yeah, and their offensive line is young because you still got Elijah Vera Tucker. You got Fashanu. They have another guard or center that's really young too.
Yeah.
I can't think off the top of my head. But yeah, I like the Membu pick as well.
And for a team that's probably going to run the mess out of the football, running back and quarterback style, like that's
Breece Hall, baby.
Yeah, like that's how they're going to try to muck games up this year. Run the ball, play defense, and Aaron Glenn, I'm sure, is perfectly fine to make that their identity. All right, head scratcher, Anthony. Who's your head scratcher of the first round?
Head scratcher. Hold on, let me pull up the draft.
This is a thing that we've been planning on doing the entire show. Perhaps
It
you
is.
come prepared for the segment.
I will say, I mean, who you're going to pick is definitely.
I did steal the easy one.
No, I'm not stealing it.
I did steal and I'm saying I stole the easy one. It's just so happened that I was live while it happened, and the way it went down, was hilarious on our live stream. And I even cussed. Luckily, don't worry, it's bleeped. But yeah, it's the other. I'll say 19's the other one.
Yeah. But Craig, you have 3, so I'm like, I can't take all 3.
What do you mean all 3?
I mean, the Giants.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about them more next, for sure.
Okay, all right. So if it's not the Giants,
Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Yeah, I think it's Tampa, to be honest.
They took McMillan last year, plus they've got Mike Evans, plus they just re-signed Chris Godwin, and then you take Emeka Egbuka?
I mean, their guys are getting older, but at the same token, you just gave Godwin an extension. Mike Evans is still in his prime, still accumulating 1,000-yard season. So that is interesting. That is a very head-scratching move.
Yeah, not the pick we expected. Now, biggest head-scratcher, biggest facepalm of the draft, Atlanta Falcons. And when they traded back in, we were live on my YouTube page at Craig Hoffman. It was me and my guy Tony Squares. And we were flabbergasted at the trade. And then we found out what they did with it. And with some slight musical enhancement, here's how that sounded. Also, the Falcons on the clock at 26. We got a trade. The Falcons are coming back in. Who the bleep are they coming back in for?
What are you doing? LA Rams get a 2026 first-round pick from Atlanta. Oh, my God. What are you doing? The 2 picks after this Giants one we were just making fun of that wasn't enough to move for anything. Congratulations, Atlanta. You gave up next year's first? Next year's first? Who is this? Who could this possibly be?
Because they took Jalen Walker, so like it's not, you would think it's not for one of the edges, unless they're going to double up. Are they going to go like Mike Green or James Pierce or
James? Oh, they just spent next year's first-round pick on James Pierce. I mean, Atlanta, you do you.
This is the most Falcons pick. What are they doing? Nobody in the NFL likes him. You might have been able to get him at 46.
I did not think Atlanta could get any dumber after what they did in last year's draft. And I like Michael Penix Jr., who was using your draft capital intelligently. They just did it again. They just doubled down on stupidity. Atlanta is the dumbest franchise in the NFL. You already drafted Jalen. What are we doing, Craig? What are we doing?
As I sunk down in my chair, backing away slowly. Also, the music, the curb music was too loud on that version. Whoops. Note to self, lower it. Luckily, if you want the version with the music lowered, go to TikTok or YouTube Shorts. Or if you want to see the full version, go to Instagram at Hoffman.sports. But yeah, the Falcons took a guy nobody liked and gave up next year's first-round pick to do it. Unbelievable waste of draft capital.
I mean, hey, look, yeah, I don't know. I'm speechless, actually. I was trying to find the words. I just couldn't.
It's a head scratcher, Anthony. It's a head scratcher. There's head scratchers and hat tips. I want to on Monday. We were short on the show today, obviously. But on Monday, I'm going to give a thought on every single team's first-round pick. So we'll go through literally 1 through 32, and we'll give one thought each. So we'll do the whole draft in like 10 minutes. Be very fun. We'll also obviously do plenty of other review on Monday, including what the Commanders do this weekend. But let's take a deeper dive into the NFC East and what they did in the first round, Cowboys, Giants, and Eagles, to wrap up as we send you off into Nationals baseball coming up at 6:15 here on the Team 980. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Wrapping up because we got the Nationals on the station here tonight, so 6:15, Nats on deck. So we have 8 minutes left in the show. We're going to run through the NFC East's picks, non-Commanders. A lot of dancing happening, Anthony, if you're watching on YouTube.
It's Friday.
Yeah, no, it is, and we're almost done, so I get it. I was just dumb enough to go on my own TikTok and see the Falcons reel, and the Falcons fans have a hold of it. These buffoons.
Yo, are you serious?
Are like, they don't understand a 1-for-1. This could be the steal of the century. You know what? I'm so happy the Falcons did the dumbest thing in the NFL because based off my experience with Falcons fans over the last 12 months, that is exactly what you deserve. You get what you ask for. You people don't know jack about football, and thus you tolerate a front office that acts like they don't know anything about football. And I don't. Match made in heaven. Y'all have fun. We're going to be over here going to the NFC Championship game with our rookie quarterback. Okay. The NFC East, I actually think there's a chance they did really well last night, all across the board in all four teams. I've talked about how I like Conerly. I think that pick works. There's a chance the Giants did the dumbest thing in football team building. I want to get there in a second. So we'll circle back to them. The easiest one to talk about is the Eagles. Of course they got Jahad Campbell. And of course the Ravens got Malachi Starks. Like, great athletes, great football players, some positional questions. Teams overthink it. As we'll say with Campbell, there's also a shoulder injury. So that's not like, it's not a perfect one. I think he plays on the edge for them. And then some at linebacker is like a blitzer, but just another weapon for them. And they really value edges that can run, as you see with the guys like Nolan Smith, who ran a 4.39 at the combine. Campbell is an off-ball linebacker edge who can really run, a guy that can, try to chase Jaden down. Like, damn it, the Eagles did it again, didn't they?
Yeah, the Eagles love them some Georgia boys or some Alabama boys. And it's ridiculous. They do get the best linebacker in football. And the fact that, he'll be able to step in while Nakobe Dean, recovered from his injury.
I don't like him as an off-ball Mike linebacker, though. I'm telling you right now, if they try to do that, then I'm like, fine, y'all have fun with that.
You don't like that?
I don't. If he's going to play next, I mean, I know, like, he's not going to replace Zach Bond, but, like, I like him a lot more in the Zach Bond role than I do. And maybe they think Bond is smart enough to play the Mike role while Dean is out. But, like, I think Campbell's an edge.
Okay.
Intel I got on him suggests edge. I'm so mad that I love it so much. The Cowboys Booker pick is so good.
Man.
That dude, did you see the clips of Micah? We'll play him on Monday in Real Things. We're on time today. But, like, that dude is something different from, like, a mental makeup standpoint. Like, he's what their offensive line used to be with Zach Martin and Travis Frederick. And, like, they have rebuilt that line in a major way. And I will give Jerry Jones this credit. They will go offensive line in Dallas, and they will double and triple down on it. And that was the basis of them being really good for a long time. And while they will eventually screw up his second contract and everyone else's second contract, because that's also what they do, they are very good at drafting. Their hit rate is high, and they just know how to eat their vegetables in the draft and not do crazy stuff. And this was such a perfectly Cowboys pick. Tyler Booker is one of the safest picks in this draft. I know exactly where his weaknesses are, but I also know what his strengths are, and his strengths are really good, and it fits what they do.
Yeah, his mentality is crazy. It is something
if you haven't heard, basically he's like, I want the guy I'm going against to wake up so excited to play football, and then I want to see his desire to play leave his eyes as I kick his butt rep after rep after rep after rep for 4 quarters. Incredible.
Crazy.
So, sadly, I love that
pick by them. Good pick.
I love that pick by Dallas, sadly. Then there's the Giants. Abdul Carter, what are you going to say? Best pass rusher in the draft? I mean, it would be nice if they hadn't spent a top 5 pick on pass rusher 2 years ago, paid Brian Burns, and then still felt like they needed a pass rusher. But They did, and they got the best player on the board. They probably are kind of in that weird spot anyway. They tried to trade up to 1. But then they might have committed the biggest sin that you can commit to me in NFL team building, which is you take a quarterback with a first-round pick for a coach who's about to get fired. And I don't say that lightly. There's a chance that this works out. And I will say I like the fit of Brian Daboll and Jackson Dart, which is why I'm not just going to lose my mind and be like, the Giants, they don't know what they're doing. I think that conversation was for January when they decided to keep Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, even though the owner was basically like, I don't know if I trust these people. And it's like, well, then you should probably just move on and let a new staff come in and figure it out. But Jackson Dart, big, athletic, bit of a gunslinger. He's not Josh Allen because no one's Josh Allen, but he's somewhere in the Josh Allen light mold. And so for that reason, I like the fit with Daboll. I just don't why are you letting Joe Schoen trade a pick in the future? Now you're going to have a new GM probably next year, unless this year's draft class just looks awesome. You're like, you want to know what? I think these are the right guys. I know we're having to take some medicine here because of the Daniel Jones thing, because of whatever. And if you think you're on the right track, you could keep them. But if you think you're going to fire them, you don't let them trade future capital for and get a quarterback that you now are committed to, because then you're offset. And now the new coach has to come in, see if he can save Jackson Dart. That wastes a couple years of him. That shortens his leash. Don't do it. It's just, if you want to take you want to take Tyler Shook in the 3rd round, fine. But this is just, it's bad for Dart. It's bad for the organization. And in that way, I guess it's good for Washington. Hooray, go Giants, way to go.
Yeah, I mean, didn't this happen to Bryce Young?
It happened to Bryce Young. It happened to...
It happens too much.
It happened in... This is exactly what the Bears just did with Caleb.
Yep.
Where, they kept Eberflus, knowing that they probably shouldn't, waste 1 year of Caleb's rookie contract and 1 year of developing Caleb, fire Eberflus halfway through the year. What happens when it's week 10? Honestly, what happens if it's week 3 and Russell Wilson's not playing great? Does Brian Daboll look at Jackson Dart and be like, sorry, kid, you're the only way you can save my job. You're not ready yet. That's the thing is you can't let individuals, your job as an owner or as a team president, as someone who exists up here, is to have the long-term vision of the franchise in perspective and provide safeguards. And it's just a total failure by John Mara to do that. Basically, by not trusting his own gut and firing these guys, which he clearly wants to fire anyway. All right, that's our show for today. We'll have much more reaction on Monday. Logan and I will probably also do a Take Command this weekend, so make sure you're subscribed there. Before we leave you, we will give you the latest from the world in women's sports. It's presented to you by Wawa Chicken How You Wanna at Wawa with customizable roasted or crispy chicken sandwiches. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you Monday back here for the Hoffman Show. Nats Baseball is next.